I did not need this camera, so why did I buy it? Hey there, my name is Wahid and I'm a photographer and filmmaker living in the Netherlands. Gear-related videos are always fun for me to watch, and especially when someone talks about the reasons why they bought something or how they use it. And the Z9 is the biggest purchase I've ever made so far, and I didn't take it lightly. It's almost twice the price of my car. Maybe you're in a situation where you're considering to get one yourself, or you're wondering why someone would buy this camera. Or maybe you just want more Z9 content. Well, this video is for you and for me. I'm not sponsored by anyone or whatever, but this camera just inspires me to make YouTube videos about it, and I want to. And now that I've had it for a few weeks, I've got some things to share. So why did I buy the Z9? I'll quickly give you my reasons and then I'll talk a bit about the mental struggle and what it did for me as a freelance photographer and filmmaker. In short, I use cameras almost every day, both for photography and for video. I use it professionally for my business as well as for personal use. So why not get one of the best tools available to make every day a little bit more fun and easier? Doesn't that already sound like a good investment? To make every day of your life more fun and easier? The main advantages of the Z9 over the Z6 II or Z7 are quite obvious. It's better in every single way. Perhaps the Z6 has better ISO performance because of its lower resolution, but I haven't tested that yet myself and I'm guessing that this is almost neglectable. Other than that, the Z9 has better autofocus, it has more speed, higher burst rates, much better build quality, incredible video capabilities, backlit buttons, don't underestimate this one. Simply put, it's better in every single way. That's of course what you'd expect from such a highly priced camera. Having said that though, it's not like the Z9 gives me a significant boost in image quality compared to my Z6 II. This of course depends on your definition of image quality. Sure, there's much more detail and resolution, which is very nice, but it's not like there's more dynamic range or a bigger sensor. And when the photos end up on the internet, you won't be able to tell the difference anyway. When printing though, it can be a different story. Also, when I look at it purely from a business investment perspective, it wasn't necessary and not the smartest decision. But that doesn't really matter. It's not something that I needed, but it's something that I wanted. There are quite a few reasons for me to not buy the Z9. The photo and video work that I earn most of my money with is corporate work. So far, I haven't seen any wildlife or high-speed action situations in offices. The autofocus of the Z6 II is more than good enough for me. My clients don't really print the photos that I make. Most of it ends up online. I personally also almost never print huge, so the 45.7 megapixels are also not really necessary. I almost never shoot in extreme conditions or heavy rain, so the incredible build quality of the Z9 is once again not necessary for me to do my work. Last year, more than 50% of my income came from video, so in that department I could benefit greatly from the Z9's video capabilities. But I already have 24/7 access to a Sony a7S III through my other part-time job. I'll talk a bit more about this later on. So literally almost everything about the Z9 is not necessary for me to do my work as a freelance photographer and filmmaker. So why did I buy it anyway? Well, here are some of my reasons to buy the Z9. Although I don't need all those megapixels, it is something that I've been wanting for a longer time. I was thinking about maybe getting a Z7 just for the higher resolution. That camera is still around 3,000 euros though. That's quite a bit of money. I'd much rather just add some more money to it and get a camera which is much better and more exciting in every single way. Although I did fine with the Z6 II's autofocus, it's still not as good as Sony's or Canon's AF. Sometimes it would just still miss even in easy studio settings. So a big performance increase in autofocus is quite tempting and always welcome. It just makes things easier. The Z9 is an incredible hybrid camera. I would benefit greatly from that as I do both photography and video work. It's nice to have the best of both worlds in one camera. As I mentioned before in the beginning, I use cameras almost every day and in every way. If I can make every day more fun and easier with the Z9, and if I am financially able to do so, then why wouldn't I? Also, I think that all the hype and marketing on the internet influenced me. Everything about the Z9 was just so exciting. I couldn't get it out of my head. Now that you've heard my reasons and situation, you can understand that it was a tricky choice. Thinking logically, I didn't really need it. But that doesn't really matter because I wanted it. The days before placing my order, when I was thinking whether or not to make the purchase, I kept telling myself that I'm not that kind of professional photographer who needs or who deserves such an expensive and professional camera. The type of work I do doesn't demand it, and nor do my clients. I was thinking and thinking and thinking about it, going over a million reasons why I should buy it or why I shouldn't. In the end, it came down to convincing myself that I am worth it, that I am that kind of photographer who could use this camera and who deserves it. And of course, it came down to the money on my bank account. Now that I'm telling this to myself, it makes me think of a quote that someone once gave me. It's by Henry Ford and it goes like, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right." This basically comes down to you are what you believe to be. And I actually believe in this. If you keep telling yourself that you can't or you're not worth it, you won't start thinking in solutions. But if you do believe that you can, for example, reach the top of the mountain or make your freelance business work, then you will start thinking about solutions instead of all the problems or limitations. And funny enough, once I placed the order, I immediately felt more professional, which is sort of silly. It gave me the confidence and actually also just more reason to increase my prices. That's quite an unexpected positive consequence. So although at some point I more or less decided to get the Z9, I still wasn't 100% sure, because it just still is a huge amount of money. But there was another problem. Camera stores just don't have the Z9 in stock, due to its high demand and current global situation. So I was just every day casually checking a few camera stores online to see whether they maybe would have some stock. Days went by and no luck. All of a sudden, on a sunny afternoon, one local camera store, Camera Express, did have it in stock. I couldn't believe my eyes. I tried to call them to make sure that it wasn't some kind of online error, but their lines were busy. I then sent them an email and they quickly replied in about 15 minutes. They told me they had 2 in stock, but in the meantime I had already pulled the trigger. At this point I knew I wanted the camera but still wasn't entirely sure. But because it suddenly was in stock, I got so excited and I just couldn't let this chance go by. Because who knows when it will be readily available next. I placed my order in the afternoon around 3 p.m. and the next morning it arrived at 8:15. I even had to set the alarm to not miss the delivery. Because I am a freelance photographer and filmmaker who earns money with his camera, it's also easier to justify buying such an expensive camera. There's just more reasons to do it. And if you look at it from a business perspective as an investment, then it suddenly seems far less expensive. For example, we all know that the Z9 costs 6,000 euros in the Netherlands. I get 21% back in taxes because I'm a registered business, so now 5,000 euros remain. I also plan on selling the Z6 Mark I for around 1,000 euros, so now 4,000 euros remain. And if you spread those 4,000 euros out over 5 years, then it's just 800 a year or 67 a month. Now it seems far more manageable. And that's something that I know I will easily earn back with this camera. What's also good to know about me is that I'm not a full-time freelance photographer and filmmaker. I also work part-time at a software company as a video content creator. So I have 2 main streams of income. Everything that I earn as a video content creator for that software company goes into my private bank account, and I use this to pay all my bills, clothing and other non-business related things. And the money that I make as a freelance photographer and filmmaker goes into a separate business account. I can use this money freely to invest back into my business because I don't need to pay myself a salary with this money. And that's also how I bought the Z9. Having a part-time job also eliminates any insecurities which you can have when working as a freelancer. In the beginning though, after getting my bachelor's degree in industrial product design, about 3 years ago now, I did go full-time into freelance photography and filmmaking, but I struggled. I struggled with filling my weeks with paid jobs. My income was anything but steady, so I started to look for a normal job, something that's related to photography or filmmaking. Eventually I found this great job at this software company. At first it felt a bit like I had failed and that I was taking a step back, because I couldn't make my own business work properly. But now I see that this actually has quite a lot of great benefits, and I'm glad that I made this decision. Let me know if you'd like a separate video about this subject. Maybe I'll do it anyway at some point. Because when you watch and follow too many photographers and filmmakers on YouTube, you might start to think that working for yourself is the only way to go. I used to think like this, but now I have a different perspective. I've now had the Z9 for about 3 weeks and it's great. I wouldn't want to go back. So far, the biggest noticeable improvement for me is the autofocus, especially the IAF and 3D tracking. Because the focusing works so well, it's something that I don't have to think about as much during a shoot as I had to with the Z6 II. I can now focus more on the composition, creativity and directing the model. For Sony or Canon users, this perhaps isn't anything new, but for me as a Nikon user, it is. The screen flipping out vertically is also really nice. I use this all the time. The camera also gave me the push that I needed to increase my rates. I hadn't done this in 2 years, which is bad on its own. It increased my confidence. Also, just holding the body gives me an entirely different feeling compared to the Z6 II. It really makes me feel more professional. I take myself more seriously and gone is the imposter syndrome. But not really. The 45 megapixels and a low ISO of 64 are also new to me. I really enjoy these. What's also great and something that I didn't really think of beforehand is that the Z9 opens up new possibilities. When I was just using the Z6 II, I didn't even think about shooting fast moving stuff, like athletes or other things. Now that I have the Z9, I feel more confident to do this, to reach out to people and to start creating new things, to take on new jobs and to expand my portfolio. And with the 45.7 megapixels, I also feel confident to perhaps in the future sell huge prints or do commercial work. If I would have to name one downside about the Z9, for me it would be the size and weight. Sometimes. Of course I was aware of this, but I didn't know how it would turn out in the real world. I just don't always feel as comfortable bringing the camera outside with me into the city. It just draws a lot of eyes. But when doing studio work or on location with clients, I don't mind the size and weight at all. I actually prefer it over the Z6. So yeah, the Z9 is of course a great camera, and whether you should get one or not comes down to your personal needs and wants, and your bank account. This was my story. Kind of strange perhaps, to make a big deal about a purchase. But yeah, I guess that's another benefit. The camera inspires me to create more. I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll be seeing you soon again. Bye bye.